Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where the topic is Bring Order to the Chaos, Enabling the PMO During the Pandemic Recovery. My name is Robert Stickle, and I'm also joined by my colleagues, Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit any questions that you may have. I will address these during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I'll be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. I will now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. Thanks for spending some time with us today. We're excited to bring you some information about this topic and some things that you can do about addressing bringing order to the chaos in these changing times. So what are the effects of the pandemic on the PMO? Well, here's just some of the ones that we see on a daily basis in talking to our clients and just looking at the market landscape. You know, obviously there's been a rapid move to remote work in larger numbers than people anticipated. Though people have been working more and more remote over the years, it really created a sudden just mass of folks that were forced into that remote work environment. On top of that, we're getting in projects on an emergency basis that we really weren't seeing before. Some of them have been high priority remote work enablement projects because maybe not all employees were enabled properly to work successfully remotely, and there was a rush to get that taken care of for people. Also, there's safe operations and procedures in this new landscape that have to take place. Given the pandemic and the things and the precautions that need to be taken to make sure that we do have a safe work environment. And then making plans just to return to work and get back to the office. And there's projects on how to do safe return to work. These are just some of the things that were brought up that are pandemic related. On top of that, in order for people to be effective while they've been remote, there's been, and I'd say with the access to cloud tools easily these days, there has been even further proliferation of work management tools in the work landscape setting. People in different business units have been grabbing new tools to meet immediate needs that they have, tools they may not have had before, and maybe kind of shadow IT, the fact that maybe IT may not even be aware of the tools that they're grabbing to do those things remotely. And they may even be getting new tools as the organization rolls out remote work enablement. There may be a remote work bundle that they get that get new tools in the mix, meaning that proliferation of tools probably now has even greater numbers of tools. And then organizations obviously have been trying that have been impacted business-wise by the pandemic are doing cost cutting and downsizing, and there's staff reductions, meaning we have to do more with less. And budget restrictions might put project on hold or focus to the core needs of what the current priorities are that weren't the priorities before the pandemic hit. These all breed some situations and circumstances and scenarios that have to be dealt with in the reality of day-to-day business. So in this new landscape, what are we looking at? Well, there's an increase in project demand to enable the post-pandemic recovery, meaning dealing with the recovery, dealing with what that means to day-to-day work, and then maybe even dealing with how to exit from this as we gradually recover and come out of this. To do this means we had projects we weren't planning on, and this proliferation of projects and activities across the organizations all still require budgets and resources. And if we have staff reductions, that compounds that situation. With the proliferation of tools and the adoption of the tools of convenience across the organization, those are things that have to deal with and are just more sources of information or increases the siloing of that information and the disconnected nature of that information. Ultimately, that also breeds line of sight or a lack of that and a consolidation of project status and budgeting and resourcing requirements become harder and harder to pull together. In this graphic here, we start to get buried by all of this as we look at the things that are facing us. So our recommendations for the road forward, there's a number of them, but as we start looking ahead, and we are going to emerge from all this, is how do we deal with this? Well, since we had changing priorities and things we thought were important weren't as important, new things came on that we weren't anticipating, we have to identify and prioritize and consolidate our projects into the things that are most relevant and most important to our business today. We also need to optimize and customize our project management framework to deal with present day realities. And more, I think the pandemic has highlighted a trend that has been happening in industry and in the marketplace today is what's called a shift left towards more business agility and more agile approaches. And if anything, this has highlighted the need to be more responsive to change, or have the ability to be more responsive to change and be agile enough to respond to the changes that come our way, so that we can take advantage of opportunities and respond to maybe some of the constraints that are put our way in an effective way. Also, given the nature of maybe a higher mix of different types of projects, the nature of remote work, need to take a look at our investments in project management tools and do what we can to protect and future-proof those things, to make sure that we have things that will meet the need into the future, and maybe not just hang on to some of the legacy things that we've had to work with in the past. So let's talk about this shifting left piece. I mean, organizations have been going through agile transformations for a number of years now, going more from the away from the traditional waterfall, big bang approach, deliver big things at the end of a long duration project, to more incremental or iterative delivery and more an agile fashion, so that we can start delivering value quicker to the organizations, and then also have it be more commensurate with the investments that we're making and get the benefits of those things sooner. That move to agile has been a trend, and I think the pandemic has done nothing but further highlight or accelerate that trend in business today. Now, given that, are people moving purely agile? Well, not necessarily. You know, though agile is a growing framework and a gradual approach to actually getting things accomplished and doing work and delivering projects and initiatives, waterfall approaches are still widely used for different types of projects, maybe infrastructure, construction, etc. There's also different variations of agile that are out there being used, you know, whether it be traditional Scrum or more Kanban type of approaches, or even hybrid methodologies that use a combination of those, or even some personalized cherry-picked versions of methodologies that organizations seem to gravitate to because they seem to fit them best. So there's still a mix out there. It's not just either pure agile or pure waterfall. Now, and that's fine. The Project Management Institute actually published a publication that stated smart organizations realize that using agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps are not the only or even the best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility, aka business agility, and that most organizations are more likely to use several different project management approaches, and that's fine. Find the right tools and the right approaches for the job at hand or the type of work that needs to be done. Now, with this shadow IT approach to proliferation of tools and easy access to tools either via the cloud or through remote work bundles, this proliferation of tools can compound itself into a very complex scenario. And just from this diagram here, that actually came from one of our clients that was adapted. If you look down the left-hand side and you look at the functional capabilities that need to be provided, portfolio management, resource management, project management, et cetera, and the organizational units across the top that are doing those, look at the different tools that are in place to do essentially the same things in all these different places. This not only breeds disconnection of data, but also silos of data and difficulty in bringing these things together for a complete picture. And what else does it breed? Well, it breeds costly and inefficient uses of time. Manual data crunching and mashing up of data to get this information all put together. Then manual report creation based on those mashups, and then formatting them and then updating them. Rekeying of information and duplication of effort is not only time consuming, but that transcription is usually prone to errors. And chasing down team members for status and updates because it has to be entered into different tools or even duplicate tools is very cumbersome. And then packaging and distribution of the reports, and then trying to track the completeness and timeliness of submissions for people is all non-productive, really inefficient use of people's time. And that proliferation of tools exacerbates all of these. So the changes needed is that program and portfolio management leaders, in evolving their PMO or project management functions, they've got to take a look at ways of enhancing or improving the old ways of doing things. We must evaluate the most suitable PPM technologies that support more adaptive and responsive approaches to these things, and just avoid unnecessary tool proliferation, but make sure that the ones that we are getting value for and that we should be using are accommodated in a way that makes sense in bringing that data together for their organizations. So as people move into these agile transformations, we like to look at this, if you think about in terms of moving left again. On the right-hand side, we have more traditional project and portfolio management, more waterfall and governance-driven PPM type of approaches that are still here today. But even if people have a desire and aspiration to move all the way to the left to that more pure agile portfolio management, it's going to be a journey. And that journey can take a considerable amount of time, and it can take years to get there. Now, in getting through that, there's going to be a hybrid of maybe waterfall and maybe some agile projects or some things in between. And that middle is that adaptive portfolio management piece. And that adaptive portfolio management stage might be a temporary phase for people that want to go pure agile eventually, or it may be a steady state, longer term state for people that realize that they have projects of both types, and ongoing they will have both traditional projects, agile projects, and even maybe some hybrids there moving forward. The key is to be able to facilitate that journey with the right tools, processes, and approaches to be successful along the way. So in an adaptive portfolio management solution, you may have one or more different types of portfolios. There might be project portfolios and program portfolios or product portfolios or even IT service portfolios or application portfolios. And these things all breed work, projects, and initiatives. And be able to have the variety of tools that these things are used that are being used to manage these things, as well as being able to use that information in a meaningful way, means you have to do things differently maybe than we've done in the past. Some of that means consolidating and translating that information. If you want to associate and align and roll up and get comprehensive views of things, down at the lower levels, you may have a variety of tools. I'm showing Azure DevOps and Microsoft Project and Jira, and even other tools that use other methodologies or hybrid. And then the methodologies that are being used might be more iterative or more waterfall on these different projects and initiatives. And then leadership wants to see things. How are we doing in our programs? How are we aligning with our strategies or strategic themes? How are we succeeding with our different portfolios? And are they aligning with our corporate goals and priorities that we have? These are the types of things that we need to bring together, and manually bringing that up from a myriad of tools and sources is a very painful exercise and sometimes less than effective. Now, when you look at the analysts like the Gartner Group, they say that the adaptive project management and reporting process flow has some of the same basic characteristics that we've had in traditional, as where we have demand and intake. We've got to prioritize and make sure we're working on the right things. We have to basically plan and source the resources that we need for that to execute, and then progress report, and then also do project portfolio reporting to leadership. The key in the adaptive mode is that we have multiple execution tools feeding this. There's varying needs in different parts of the enterprise. We have different execution methods, and some of them support more continuous delivery like DevOps. And we are really looking to reduce overall project durations and respond to change quicker, and use methods that actually take those basic pillars that you see at the top and do them more quickly and responsively over the course of the life cycle of these projects and initiatives. And not only do these things have to happen in our projects, the adaptive project management needs to be applied to many different delivery methods. So like digital projects and applications and assets may be using Agile and DevOps approaches. Our product management and product development and services might be using more product development or new product development approaches. And our traditional projects and programs may be using more traditional project and program management. The key is we have to have things that accommodate all these things in a cohesive way. And on top of that, you could even layer on strategic execution. I mean, to make sure that we're working on the right things in an organization, we have to make sure that we have our strategies clearly defined, communicated to the organization, and then the things that we actually apply time and resources and effort and dollars towards should be things that support those stated strategies to make sure that we're moving in the direction that the organization wants to go. If we deliver the wrong things well, it still isn't going to add value to the organization. So to do that these days, we need modern tools. We need tools that support this more adaptive approach to executing work and providing visibility. And one plan does that by providing pre-configured solutions that connect all the way from the strategic level, if you like, all the way down to the execution. In this graphic overview, I'm looking at a portfolio at the top graphic that is actually taking contributions from a variety of different planning tools. In this Microsoft-centric view, you have their new project for the web might be used for some projects to execute. You might be using the traditional project professional desktop tool to do the same thing. Or you might be using agile approaches in something like Azure DevOps. Now, these are just Microsoft examples, but non-Microsoft tools fit into this scenario as well. One plan provides a common portfolio level set of capabilities for you so that you can plan your portfolios. You could actually take agile approaches with more portfolio level boards, or even take more roadmap views for new product development and such as you go through and have visibility into these projects across all of your work, regardless of where the details are being managed. And be able to do things like resource capacity planning or manage detailed financials. And from the bottom up, you can have a variety of work plans visualized together, regardless of where they come from, as well as common formats for status reports across all that, so that we're all speaking a common language, let alone being able to report time against projects for organizations that need to have timesheets, and provide insights and intelligence of where things need our attention and where even individual contributors need to focus their efforts. On top of that, optionally, you could take all the things I just described and even layer on a strategic level so that you can manage objectives and key results, or OKRs, and align your projects and initiatives with those. So the story that we're going to demonstrate to you today is that one plan can standardize that adaptive project and portfolio management capabilities across the organization and really limit the number of tools that you're using and where you really have to have a diversity of tools. Because the portfolio management capabilities of those levels can be taken care of and brought together in a single hub. And reporting can be a natural output of the process by using Power BI from Microsoft as an extension of what we're doing here today. So if we think about facilitating these enterprise agile transformations, one plan has a role in both the traditional, with just pure, like say, Microsoft project-ish waterfall projects, or a combination of that with, say, Azure DevOps and Jira, or even fully agile when you're using nothing but agile tools. One plan can bring these together or be your portfolio management tool in any stage of that journey. Now, bringing these things together isn't the old model of trying to have developers code one-off integrations. One plan also provides productized standard integrations for the common tools that are out there, whether they be agile tools, whether they be finance or ERP tools, whether they be more traditional work management tools or service management tools, or even professional services tools and CRM systems that may be feeders into your projects, as well as ideation tools and other places where you capture those things. Now, one plan is built for the Microsoft Cloud and has a fused user experience. It can be used strictly in a browser, or it can be used in that Microsoft Cloud and surfaced or be provided in a user experience via Power Apps, or from within Dynamics, or from within Azure DevOps, or very commonly, people want to access right from within their use of Teams as they work and collaborate with others in their organization. The key is, however you use it, it should be used in a way so that you can stay working in the tools and the environments that you work in every day. So the key is even in Microsoft, they have so many different work management tools that are available to you. We bring this together. It's purpose-built for you in the Microsoft Cloud. It provides flexible deployment architectures of how you would like to use the software in the cloud. And it really integrates all work that impacts business outcomes and bring it into a single hub of one plan to make those things happen. So enough about the concepts here today. Now I'd like to turn it over to Paul Estabrooks, who will now give you a demonstration of these things in action.
All right, so I'm going to walk through a demo of one plan, but I wanted to start with sort of a quick sort of snapshot of what we see with a lot of clients when we talk to them and they outline their current scenario. You'll see here on the screen I have a project set up, and this is in Planner, and you can see down the left side there are a bunch of other Planner projects. This is a traditional sort of Planner environment. So here you can see we're scheduling some work, and it's not uncommon for the clients that we work with for them to have a group or a department or a business unit that chose Planner as their tool of choice. It made sense for them at the time, it was where it was available, and off they ran, and now they're comfortable with it. Another group may be turning to Project for the Web, which is what's on the screen right now. So now we have this new capability, and groups are starting to adopt this. So I have my ability here to kind of go a little further than what Planner could do, in that I can create a schedule. I can look at that schedule in a board type view. I'll just sort of quickly kind of jump through that and see sort of who's working on what. And then I can jump to a timeline view, which is a little beyond what Planner does, to kind of give this the conventional scheduling capabilities. So this is where Microsoft's going. There's been a lot of emphasis and investment in this area. So there's this tool option. Then there are organizations who use Project Professional, and will continue and will need to use the more robust, more rich tooling that this provides. So this capability, there's a project schedule. You're going to see me use this schedule a little bit later in the demo, where we've built it out using Project Pro. And if I go back to my web environment, the fourth scenario is, as Jim just talked about, as people shift left, this idea of managing work in an agile type format, where we get into things like user stories and features and epics, and you'll see some of those on the screen, where you may have groups within your organization. This is how they organize their work. This is what they're trying to do. And so as a PMO, you're trying to make sense of all of this. I have stuff in Planner. It's basic, it's simple, but for the groups that are using it, they love it. I have people starting to use Project for the Web. I have that audience or that business unit that has to use Project Pro because they need the rich capabilities. And I have other groups moving more towards Agile, and they want to use this type of tool, whether it's Jira or DevOps or what have you. So let's bring all those together. That's the whole message that we wanted to cover today, is bringing order to this chaos. So I'm going to jump over to my one plan environment. You'll notice I am in Teams. Just wanted to draw that attention that I'm going to demo this from inside Teams. So we're layering that into this equation as well, is that ability to collaborate on these things, regardless of where they exist, by having a Teams environment. So I'm just going to push the Teams stuff out of the way, just to give myself a little bit more room. And what I want to draw your attention to first is I'm in my portfolio here, and you can see those various projects. For customers using mobile was the Project Professional ones. Social network integration was in Planner. This counter Heartbleed web security was actually one of the epics, or one of the components in DevOps, and the app launch events down here in Project for the Web. So those 4 projects now reside here. And if I jump to, I can do different views, but now I can do my status reporting, my dashboarding, all of that common language that we as a PMO or as an organization need to understand the status of these projects and so forth is all here, regardless of the tool being used. We're not here to tell people you have to drop that tool and move to a different one and go through that change management. No, we want to incorporate that into your overall user experience. So I'm going to dive into a few of these pieces because I want to spend a bit of time on this, because this now gives me the ability, as I come in here, to look at some of the data that we can capture, again, regardless of what tool's being used. So here I can now layer in things like stage gating and governance on any of those types of projects where that would not be available in some of those tools on their own, and capture some other information, including a business case and prioritization information, which I'll use a little bit later. And then it's status report, and I'll spend a bit more time there as well. Next, I can look at this in a financials context. So I want to lay out what this budget might look like over a time phase. Again, not something that most of those tools can do. It's certainly not something that they natively support in terms of consolidation, but I have it here. So I can do a cost breakdown structure and a budget by month, and I can track actuals and all the rest of it, and I won't drill into all that detail. The third one, which is probably one of the most popular ones when we talk to clients, is that ability to understand where we are with resources across our organization. Each of the tools I showed you handles resource assignment and management very differently. Some will give you the task and assume that the task is the only thing you're working on. Others can do very sophisticated scheduling. Others don't have any concept of time range or dates. They just simply have work effort. So we need to be able to take those different things and bring them together. And so here I have my list of list of resources rather. I have some generic resources I need to fill in, but I'm looking at this I'm just using one of the 4 I showed you, but all of them would have this same capability to define what resources I need, how much I need them for in a given month, in this case, or week, if you want to go to that level, and what that means in terms of the other capacity or the other tasks that they're assigned to across the organization. If every project sort of uses this common frame, we abstract ourselves from the ways that each of those independent tools handle resource management and give us a common language and a common interface to work with. So very quickly, I know Daniel, who I'm logged in as, has work on this project this month and that month and is actually over-allocated due to other commitments on other projects, including some of the other ones I showed you. Next is the actual work plan. So we're drawing into here some of that data that we looked at. So the actual schedule from Project Professional, we can now visualize it here. This is that same schedule. We've pulled it in. We've also pulled in, this project happens to do both. We've also pulled in its backlog, which is the very information that was sitting in this view here. So now I have that same information here. So as a PM, I don't need to go out to those tools. I can visualize and use all of it right here in front of me. And then lastly, to sort of close off that piece of the story, is this idea that I can do a status report for this particular project here centrally. Regardless of the tool I'm using, again, I can come in here and create a report on the status of this particular project. That will load, I hope. There it is. So I can now have that common language. One of the most, in all the implementations we've done of PPM solutions over the years, without a doubt, status reporting has been one of the common threads and common themes. To be able to go in and provide a status on this particular project that is a common user interface and a common set of criteria and common set of information that can then be moved on to the program level and the portfolio level and to some of the dashboarding I'll conclude this demo with, is very important. And so we're not limited or bound to those different tools, regardless, whether they're Microsoft tools or otherwise, we have this common language. So that's some of the key components at the project level. Next, I wanted to look at this in the context of one of the things that Jim pointed out about sort of coming out of the pandemic was to identify and consolidate. Well, we've done that by getting everything connected here. We've identified where all the projects are, what tool they're being managed in, who's on them, and all the rest of it. So we've done that identification. But what you're also seeing on this screen is the organization or the consolidation of those projects. You see here we've got these different programs and portfolio constructs here where we've organized those projects into groups. Some of these projects that I had opened earlier are actually all part of a specific program. One of the other ones is in a different program. But there they are inside of a portfolio and part of a program that we can now do status reporting at that program level. We can assess budget and budget usage at the program level. We have that overarching view of these projects that have taken off from all over the organization in these variety of tools that people grabbed and went with in a time of need. So we have that organization and that ability here to sort of get structure and stuff around that. What we can also do is prioritization. So now that we know what we're working on, are we working on the right things? Are we focused on what we should be? So now you can see where each of those projects would have potentially done that alignment to strategy and would have created a score. Now, again, there's all the tools that are being used. I can now start to prioritize. I won't go into this in a ton of detail, but I can literally start to move projects up and down the list if I want to and say, that's no longer important, I want to move it down. But, and here's the value of that common language around budget and around resources, is I can now start to look at all those projects, set a target for my budget, and start to determine how do I go about achieving that budget. Let's sort of correct those 2 months. You start to look at some of these projects down here that we have proposed. Again, I don't think the one that's on holdout. I start to work on improving my budget situation. We're getting there. And I can take out a few more. and it'll continue to recalculate. So almost there. I'll stop there for now. But this is the byproduct of that common language with respect to budget. I don't care what tool you're using. You'll notice I clicked right by those. I didn't pay attention to which one they were in. I didn't have to go back to the tool and change a budget value and bring it forward and do something with it. No, I have my information is here, it's centralized, and I can work on it. Likewise, I could look at this through that resourcing lens and start to make changes to the projects that I'm including to try and get rid of some of this red or shift projects out, shift timelines, and do that type of prioritization because I'm looking at this resource pool centrally and not set it up in those different product environments to try and make sense of it. We are managing our resources centrally against the capacity of the organization. That's a conventional prioritization. What we also have in here is some other views of this same data. So now I can look at this. This is a board view. I'm looking at it by strategy, but I could look at it by goals by program and start to make some decisions here and move projects in and out of a program to make decisions on how I might want to move forward in a more agile type of format. I can perform that type of prioritization here as well. Lastly, from a view perspective, is this idea of a roadmap. So I can now look at my projects, again, independent of what tool they might be being executed in and where they are and who owns them. But I have this overarching view that I can now see by business unit with some milestone data and so forth and some interrelationship where each of these projects is, color coded based on overall health. So I've got a red one there I might want to look into in more detail. And again, I don't care what tool you're using to deliver it. Lastly, I'm going to conclude this demo on the dashboards. I'm going to jump down here. I want to use a couple of specific ones. My portfolio summary. I want to quickly look at, this is my portfolio of projects and how they're performing. And if I want to get into my portfolio details, here's my overview. Here's the status of my portfolio and of the projects and epics and programs within that portfolio and how they're performing. So I'm looking at a particular portfolio. Here are the programs in it, and here are the projects. So I'm able to pull all that data together, report on it centrally, get a good, clear picture of where we are as an organization, make some prioritization decisions to ensure that we stay aligned with what's important, and that we're optimally spending our budget, and that we're using our resources in the best way, and then turn the teams loose to use the tools that they need, the tools that they're comfortable with, the tools they've adopted to execute on the project. So it's that symbiotic relationship. Here's the information that I need to govern the organization as a whole, and here's the freedom to go and execute in the way in which you need to. Jim, with that, I'll let you close.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the excellent demo. Let me transition to my screen here and let me know when you can see it.
I can.
All right, terrific. Well, to recap some of the concepts and the things that Paul showed you during the demonstration, let's talk about the value of one plan and adaptive PPM. By going down this road and taking these approaches to enhancing your current project and portfolio management processes and systems, one is, and relating this to the responding to the pandemic, is ensuring that your organizations are working on the right things that are aligned to the strategies and priorities and staying on top of that as those strategies and priorities change, because they're these days changing a lot more than once a year in an annual plan. Also, by having improved visibility of all projects and initiatives and work in a single place, that improved visibility allows for rapid responses to changing conditions and be able to take action while you might still have some impact on that situation in a positive fashion. Also, with an adaptive approach, and we talked about using a variety of tools to feed into this, we can keep users working in their preferred tools and solutions that are appropriate for their role, for their maturity, and for the type of work that they're engaged in. Also, we have the ability to support a variety of execution methodologies and tools, yet have it roll into a common language on things like portfolio reporting to leadership, resource capacity planning, even financial reporting. And it also can help us improve adoption of these solutions by minimizing the silos and the disconnection, and which then minimizes any duplication of effort or duplicate entry of information, which takes away unnecessary complexity from actually feeding this information to the organization. And this really brings about a better user experience. And a better user experience will drive better participation in compliance and make sure you get more timely information and more complete information from your user base. Ultimately, we're integrating all work and resource information into a common hub. And by doing so, we allow teams to work in the tools and the approaches that make the most sense. And as the ones that are moving to that left faster, the ones that are trying to be more agile and responsive to change and deliver quicker, they get to continue to be agile and improve in that agile approach, but leadership will still get the visibility and the metrics that they require to run the business. Overall, we'll end up with better collaboration and better decision support information across all areas of the business if we deploy this in a thoughtful way. So how can you explore this? Well, one is, if you go out to the App Source on Microsoft, we have a one-plan adaptive project portfolio management trial out there that you can get to very readily and give it a whirl and tell us what you think. You can actually load it up with some sample data and get a look and feel for what it's like to work in this adaptive environment. Outside of that, there's other things you can do as a next step. If you're not ready for a free trial or get hands-on with that, maybe you're thinking, how do I get from where I'm at today into a more of an adaptive project and portfolio management scenario? We do offer a free roadmap workshop, so we can talk to you about where you're currently at, the objectives of the places you'd like to get to, and give you an understanding of what it might take from just a process perspective, a timing perspective, and a license perspective of what it would mean to get to the things that you saw there today. And if you're not even at that point yet, and you saw a generalized high-level demo from Paul today, we're happy to schedule a personalized one-on-one demonstration with you so that we can address specifically your scenarios and your use cases and address those directly. So we really hope to engage with you. And if you'd like to, you can reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai, and we'll have somebody respond to you and get engaged with you. And you can even check out additional webinars or information more about OnePlan by going to oneplan.ai in your browser. So that's it for us today. We hope you got some value out of the information here today, and we really do hope to engage with you in the future. Have a great day.